Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Dadsigner podcast. I'm Michael Smith, your host, and today I'm joined by Warren Davis III. Hey, Warren, welcome to the show.
How's it going? Thank you so much for having me on, man.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. Why don't you tell folks a little bit about where you're located, a bit about your family structure, and what you do professionally?
My wife and I run our own agency called amusing.com, also amusing.design. You go to either URL and do that. We've been full-time for the last 5 years for ourselves as an agency. Obviously, when you're working in the creative field, you always kind of freelance on the side or take on other things. And we did that. My wife left her full-time profession at Reef, the sandal company or surf company. She was there for 12 years as an art director. And when we had our first kid, she wanted to be a mom and still do work on the side. So that's kind of the transition we did. And then eventually I was able to join her in 2021. And we're located in Southern California. We have two boys, both under 10. And man, it's just awesome to be able to work from home, work for yourself, and be able to be around the kids and include them in seeing some of what you're doing and building and still get to take them to their classes or different things like that. But we homeschool, so also we take them to like a local PE class with other homeschool kids or a coding class that's nearby or different things like that. So
Yeah. And previous to launching out, you said you joined her in 21. What was your work family balance like?
2018 to 2019, I worked at a place called Speed Society in San Diego. They were one of the first car sweepstakes kind of online giveaway places, if not the first. I was creative director there. It was fantastic. I had reached this pinnacle in my career of I'm now a creative director. I got a team under me of designers and creatives, mostly in the media space, so photography and video and motion graphics. And we're shooting amazing cars like Mercedes and GTRs that have 900 horsepower and Corvettes that are decked out like the C7R race car. And not only am we shooting them, we're giving them away every 60 days, capturing the people's experiences. So it's like this mix of I grew up watching like the home makeover shows and then they give it to the family. It's like dude, yeah, I'm getting chills right now. I got tears and, like, it's just this amazing thing, right? But it was insane hours, and we were going really hard. And it was also an hour and a half from our house because I was driving from Riverside County where we live to San Diego, San Diego County where the business was. And I'd be up in the morning, wouldn't see the kids or the family, give my wife a kiss while she's asleep essentially. And then jet to San Diego, spend all day, sometimes depending on launching a new car or we have people coming in town, we got to prep or whatever. Um, or we got to stay late for golden hour to get good photography or video. I wouldn't get home until after 7, sometimes after 10, or sometimes probably should have just slept at the office. I had zero balance, and I would only see the family on the weekends. And it made me really like messed up in a way because my love language, my wife's, is also time. And so not being able to share our love language really with each other, it was just a wild season of life, I'll say. We both were in on it together and we understood the assignment, of being the creative director for this company and what it was. But I just knew it wasn't going to work long term, you know. And I eventually had a friend reach out that was the creative director for KTM Motorcycles. And he'd been trying to get me over there for a little while, and they had a senior role open up. So I actually took a demotion, if you want to call it that, but I was still a senior designer in a small pay decrease, but I was 15 minutes from home. And so instantly, work-life balance was fantastic again. I could at least see the family, in the morning and in the evening and do dinner and all that stuff. And then I think we still wanted more, though. I think we always still had this vision of working for ourselves and being our own agency. And we never, we still, even to this day, don't see ourselves as like having, I've worked at big agencies, 60, 70 people, large clients, national, if not global brands, but we don't see ourselves being that necessarily, but a SWAT team, if you would, of, skilled professionals that we all bounce work to each other. And that's kind of how we have it structured now. A bunch of different small agencies or freelancers cobbled together with different specialties. And we have life set up that way now. And so now we have all the time in the world to be with our family on, in specific days we have deadlines, but we're able to, for the majority of time, pick and choose our battles and where we can go places or do things. And sometimes we pick up work at night, and sometimes we pick up work on the weekends, but we took all day Tuesday to go to the San Diego Zoo, so it's okay, and go when nobody else was there. So it's a good
Yeah.
balance now.
Nice. Yeah. It's interesting because I think so frequently people would look at the move from creative director to senior designer, pay decrease, like all of those things are the wrong direction, quote unquote. And yet you gained so much more with family and all these other things. But yeah, sure it was challenging.
I can add a tidbit there. My wife and I have done that in different ways in our life together, and I really learned that out of college. I graduated from the Art Institute of Orange County, California, Orange County, with an advertising degree, and I immediately was in the industry. I was interning beforehand. I was super aggressive, but I was 21 at graduating, and so I was like early, and I was working at this agency that's no longer there called DGWB. They were probably one of the best well-known mid-size agencies in Orange County, California, and they had Wiener Schnitzel and Dole Bananas and KFC SoCal and a bunch of big food brands and local hospitals and things like that. I was on a shoot with Wiener Schnitzel. It was their 50th anniversary. I was on the Wiener Schnitzel account doing the mailers you get for coupons in the mail, so like low grade stuff to posters up in the Wiener Schnitzel store, product launches, special deals. We did 79-cent corn dogs every darn day, and we did a whole thing around that. But I got to meet John Gallardi, who started it. He's no longer involved, but they brought him back in for the 50th to tell stories and all that stuff. And he talked about he used to work at, before Wiener Schnitzel, before he started that, he worked for Taco Bell, for Andy Bell, who started Taco Bell. People got, investors and a board got involved with Taco Bell. He was a young kid that was overpaid by the board's perspective. And they asked him to reduce his pay. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to go do my own thing. And so he chalked it up to sometimes life makes you, you're going down a road and you're trying to get to a place and you come to a dead end or a cul-de-sac or however you want to phrase it. It's like, you got to go back to go where you're going. Right. And so I brought that up early in our relationship, and we have had to do that a couple of times in life. When our first son was born, we were in our first home that we owned in Oceanside, California. And my wife took her leave from work, and she had a lot of leave. And in that time, those couple of months, she was like, I don't want to miss anything. I want to be there for our kids' first steps and first words and noises and all the things. And so we figured out if we sold our house, paid off some minor, school loans or things like that, we could go down to one income, find a rental, do that, and she could start doing the freelance, and we could ultimately build to where we are today. So we took a step back, right? We sold our first home we ever owned only 2 years after buying it, but it was for the right reasons. I took a here I go again with that same thing. I took a reduction in pay and reduced my title to be close to home, to be near the family. And also be back in motocross, which I grew up racing motocross. So it was like always a sport that was near and dear to me. So it had a lot of good positives in making that decision.
Yeah. That's really cool. And so now you and your wife have the agency. What is a client that or a project that has stood out to you as like, oh man, this one was so much fun to work on?
I'd like to bring up two. One we still work with and one we don't work with anymore. Joybees Footwear. If you go to joybees.com, they're under new management, new team, and all that stuff. So they're doing their own thing now. But early on in their, I think it was 2019, we started doing just hourly design work for them because they had a couple things here, there, a catalog update, a this or that, whatever. And eventually we were like, hey, we do brand strategy and we do positioning, and we can do your Shopify website. We can do kind of the whole omni-channel thing, campaign. So fantastic leader at the time, Kellen, who I'm still good friends with, he was like, let's do it. We're going to be going into Target and Walmart and all these places, and we got to look the part, and we're just not there yet. And I want to invest. And so they had a board that was the investment board that was working with Kellen, the CEO at the time, and they believed in us. And so we did the whole thing, and we started with stylescapes, or we started with strategy and then figured out messaging and positioning and those things. We didn't want to change the logo or the name or any of that stuff. So, and I thought that those were fine for the positioning we were going for, which was kind of the target mom who's buying for the whole family, right? The kids and all those things. And they made EVA foam shoes. So some people call them water shoes, but they're really for like kids wear them all, everyday life now, right? So, and they were making styles that weren't just your typical, slip-on clog style. They had those, but it was like skate shoes, but in that espadrilles or these really trendy styles. So, um, we got to do packaging for them, and they also launched the shoe charm line, which we did all the packaging and branding for as well too. So if I can show that, we did pop-ins, we named it, we did this cool honeycomb pattern to match their B logo, and then that turned into displays, and they wanted to get influencers on board. And so we did influencer boxes. And so this one's for like the trendy mom. So it's all like color block. And then we took the pop-ins graphics and made a kids friendly version where they could color it in and be all cool and fun. And I just had a fun time doing all that, and it let me use my skills of like, I'm a big fan of making paper models. So like getting the whole experience at micro scale before really going there, and getting to see like, oh, it's a fun surprise that the inside's orange and there's a personal letter inside. And yeah, so that was a really fun company that we were working with for 4 years that we got to do, like I said, really everything under the sun.
That's cool.
A couple years ago, a friend of mine who we met each other through motocross and different things within that. He had a previous company that they made motocross movies called the Moto Co. No longer, but he split up from that partner and was looking to do something that really spoke to him. He'd been an avid cold press juicer for a long time, even though he's like this gnarly action sports dude. And we had always had these conversations around how like motocross specifically, but action sports in general is owned by sugar drinks, right? Like your Red Bulls, your Monsters, your Rock Stars, all those. And it's well known, if this is a surprise to you, surprise. But like when the people are up on the podiums drinking their drinks, it's not that, it's water inside. You can tell there's a blue dot on the bottom of the can. And so he is like, I want to make the action sports motocross version of cold pressed juice. And so we got to talking, and I was like, this is so up my alley, like, and he already believed in me as a designer and everything. And so, because we had had success before, and I was just like, what are we going to name this thing? All that. And so we got to do everything from literally me and him helping him concept this thing to naming it Rad because it's raw and delicious. And so it's Rad Juice, radjuices.com if you want to check that out. Rad Juices on Instagram. And he's in San Luis Obispo County, SLO County. And that's a very action sports surf culture, but also like kind of high end, like there's expensive homes and all that stuff. So he was really worried, like, it's so me, this brand that we're coming up with. Is it going to resonate with like, yes, the college part and all that stuff in the action sports is fine, but like there's a lot of older, I don't want to call them like hippie granolas, but just older health advocates, that is this going to resonate with them? And they have the discretionary income and they don't want to do the juicing. And they are like, what a press juice or evolution or suja juice or all the competitors that he would have would go after, very clean, again, kind of granola, green aesthetics, white labels. And he's like, I was like, let's go left field, dude. We're taking a stage out of liquid death. We're going left, right? And so, excuse this is just a paper mock-up version of it, but we went Rad Juice with super bold graphics, and then when it's the actual sticker, it's super vibrant and like real poppy and glossy and all that stuff. But it's raw and delicious cold pressed juice, and Man, he cannot stay in stock. He is
Wow.
killing it. In 2 years, he now has 5 staff, I think. I could be wrong, could be more. They're juicing multiple days a week. It's his full-time job. He's crushing it. They're doing like 6 or 7 farmers markets a week. And he's like, we're the number one market stall at the place. We have the longest line. We're selling out of the juices. We can't make them fast enough. And he's like, once a week, once every other week, some millionaire's like, hey, I've been watching you, and when can I invest? And he's like, it's not the time, but thank you. And let's keep talking, and he's just like, he's trying to really make sure he's got the foundation in place before he just goes to the moon. And it's just been really fun to do all of his, from the name to the aesthetic to everything that's happening. And he's making a killer product. He's going the extra mile and making the juice good. But like, we're doing a cool job on making it real fun and design, sneaking lightning bolts. We captured lightning in a bottle finally. Yes. And uh, just making it stand out on the shelf. And he's in 1 or 2 local markets where it's in a refrigerator next to the big names I offered. And those markets are saying, we can't keep your juice in stock. You see a photo of the refrigerator and he's got his row and they're right there, and his just boom in your face, and it's just working.
Yeah. So I know that story is similar to Liquid Death, just on like the water side of things, right? Same
Mhm.
demographic that it was targeting. Was Liquid Death on the market when Rad launched?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
And
nice.
so we had already seen Liquid Death have their success. So definitely was in our communication, but we weren't doing it just because Liquid
Right.
Death did it. It was
Yeah.
like, no, this is genuine to Jason, the founder of Rad Juice, who still to this day rides motocross, used to have a motocross company, like it wasn't something that was like we were force fitting. And I think that's true also for Liquid Death. The
Yeah.
owner was like this punk rock metal guy, who's a creative, and it fit him. I think
Yeah.
that's one thing I talk to my clients a lot about, especially in the strategy and positioning world, is like it can't feel disingenuous to you, because then it's just like people can smell that a mile away.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, obviously, juice and water are slightly different categories, but you took your own approach. Both, it didn't follow the energy drink route, it didn't follow the Liquid Death route, and it didn't follow the juice category route, which is cool to see. And like you said, it was his personality, so it was easy to like draw that out. But it's cool.
Yeah.
I love that
And
lightning bolt.
yeah, yeah. We just did this label update too to include it. He used to have a square bottle that just had a flat label on it, and he just switched to the round bottle so you can use a machine to roll the labels on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was one nervous thing I had around, you like, can the machine roll these little edges on? And so I rounded all the corners and I tried to make it legit. And um, we played around with the space, to make sure that it works. And one thing I was like, that's kind of a benefit, is those machines don't always get it perfectly right. And so like
Yeah.
if you did a hard square edge like most people do, you see that movement a little bit more than like it's hidden more this way. And
Mhm.
so he sent me videos, I'm happy to share if I need to, of him rolling it on and how the bottle looks and all that stuff. And it's so rad.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, and I think that that element of design, when you're designing physical products, is just so much fun to be
Mhm.
like, because you might have the coolest idea in the world, but if it doesn't work on the line, that client wants nothing to do with you because it's just making every single day so much harder for them, right? And
Yes.
so it's cool when the idea comes to fruition and you've thought through all of the nuances, tested it, and it does work. And it's like,
Yeah. And I think that comes with experience too. I've been doing this 17 years, and my wife has also been doing it for 17 years. And so we've just been around the block and made a lot of mistakes. And that's like, I think for those that want to be freelance and do this I'm in my 30s, my wife's 40. And so like we, I think a lot of young freelancers or young agencies look to someone in our skill level and are like, that's what I want to do right now. And I worked for 6 different places before getting here and made mistakes. And I had creative directors or seniors that would let me make those mistakes and all that stuff. And that's where I learned round the corners, you silly, and do these different things. But also when you're in conceptual phase, think through all the different things. Like I've showed this already, but when we did the Poppins packaging, this wasn't the only concept we showed. We showed three concepts. Guess what? One was just a square. And I'm so thankful that Kellen and the team at Joybees chose the hexagon, or we call it the honeycomb look. And we have different sizes. There's 3-packs, there's a single, and they all still feel in this family. And it was like, he was like, thank you for showing me this. This was like option C, the most exciting and wild. We have to try, right? We have to try. And I had that same moment with Rad when I was talking to Jason about the name and the positioning. He was like, are those older people going to get it and still buy it? And I was like, who doesn't want to be Rad? Who doesn't want to still hold on to their cool youth, or be associated with it at least? And he's like, it's now he's years down the road and it's working. And he's like, it's not even a problem. Majority of my people are older. We still get the young crowd, but the older people have the money. And
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going with that, but I think it's just being willing to try, and fail and then try again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's cool. I'm still, even this year, when you mentioned the package design, there was a project I worked on this year and I didn't do enough testing. I didn't do enough
yeah,
forethought, and an aspect didn't work, and it wasn't the end of the world, and it was we fixed it, and now it's like water under the bridge. But like those moments like are I wanted to throw up for like 3 days.
yeah,
Because like I knew it wasn't just me failing. Like I failed my client and now I had to like make it right with them and make sure it's all good. But yeah, I mean, it's not like I'm out of the woods. I've been doing it for a while and then not out of the woods, not making mistakes anymore. But I'll never make that one again.
that's right. And that's the thing too. And I want to bring this back to our podcast here. It's the same for dads and for
Yeah,
parents, right? It's
yeah,
like sometimes you have to let the kid go through an experience to really understand why, or why I'm trying to protect you from that experience or those things. And I'm not saying like you need to put them in harm's way or those things. It's more like I've told you not to jump on the couch 27 times today only, and you already know that that's a rule in our house. But okay, I'm in the other room now. And now you bonked your head, or hurt your leg. It's not a, I told you so. It's they just had to experience it themselves, and they'll probably still keep doing it. But um, it's that's where I
yeah,
think it lines up with parenting.
yeah. And it's hard. I mean, as a parent, to sometimes make that choice. Like, all right, said it 100 times, or they've gone through
Mhm.
this, and like allowing them to experience it is like almost harder than the frustration of correcting them for the 27th time, at least for me.
I mean,
Yeah.
like I was just saying, most oftentimes I'm not even allowing it. It's just happening in the other
Yeah.
room, or you know what I mean? And it's like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
That's cool.
that's been like a huge thing for me to learn. I mean, I had good parents, and like I said, I grew up racing motocross. I've had plenty of bumps and bruises and injuries, um, but they let me learn those boundaries on my own. I think until you do, sometimes you don't learn, and that's all of life, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that sets us up well for the last two questions,
So, okay,
which
great.
are, as a dad, what has been your greatest joy and what has been your biggest learning?
Joy, as I mentioned, I grew up racing and riding motocross and bicycles. So seeing the boys riding bikes, and we have they're called Stasics. They're electric bicycles that have a twist throttle like a motorcycle. Seeing them enjoy their bicycles and their Stasics is really cool. My wife and I actually met through motocross and friends of friends through the industry, and so it's obviously close and near and dear to our heart, right? And seeing them also just, our older son, he really is taking to the creative side. Um, and he loves drawing and painting. And we have, make your own story comic book books and stuff like that. And he does it, and he's learning to do that, and he's having a lot of fun with it and shows us all the time. And we try to show a lot of interest in the art stuff. So one other thing they really enjoy building and painting Warhammer miniatures, which is like this little game from England that's been around for 40 years. It's gotten really popular recently because there's a TV show coming and a video game that launched a couple of years ago. And I think they're finding their stride in main culture now, but they really enjoy building little characters, and it's their version of a GI Joe, if you would.
Nice, nice. And yeah, what has been your biggest learning as a dad?
Uh, just It's probably trite to say, but just patience, man. I mean, and I kind of grew up in a family that was like, this is no dig at them, but we were always just kind of on the go, and going to do writing or going to do a dinner or things like that. And I think my wife and I are much more of like, it's okay to be bored and calm and slow and with time and at our own pace and those things. But I think there are times like, we're trying to get to an appointment or we're trying to get to a thing before it closes or whatever. And I get back in that like, let's go, mode. And it's like my wife is politely reminds me like we are not in a hurry, and we are on our own time, and it's okay if we get there whenever. We're very much early people anyways. Like I'm always trying to get there 15 or 20 minutes early. She's like, if we took an extra 5 minutes, we are more than okay. But I think that's been the one thing, patience, and also just like we're not in a rush, man. And I think I'm also very grateful and thankful to say that we're not in a rush because of our scenario where we're self-employed. We can kind of make our own schedule. We're not doing saving lives over here with design as much as it can feel that way sometimes. We make our own schedule. We can do it. We can pick up work at night or on the weekend to catch up or whatever. So that's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I appreciate you coming on. If folks wanted to connect with you online or see some of your work, where can they go to do that?
Yeah. So we get a lot of our work through word of mouth and just fantastic long-term relationships or previous coworkers or those things that have moved on to other places. And so we don't have a huge online presence for our work, but if you go to amusing inc, like inc.com, or amusing.design, you can see our work, some of our work there. And I'm always happy to share work one-on-one with a potential client over a discovery meeting or those things. You can also find me. My Instagram is wd3.me, or on LinkedIn, I'm WD3. So
Nice. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to share about your work and your family, and we will chat soon.
thank you so much, Michael. Hey, good luck, everybody out there.